In Haiti, the Living Together coalition of criminal groups has been setting fire to residences, schools, and churches since Sunday in revenge for the death of one of its own leaders at the hands of police forces. The Committee for the Protection of Journalists denounces that Israel has killed two-thirds of the total number of journalists who have died violent death worldwide in 2024. Ukraine security services killed General Igor Kirillov, chief of the radiological, chemical, and biological defense troops of the Russian armed forces. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from teleSUR Studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Haiti, the Living Together coalition of criminal groups has been setting fire to residences, schools, and churches since Sunday in revenge for the death of one of its leaders at the hands of police forces. In the middle of a confrontation this weekend, national and multinational police forces neutralized aka Jeff Mafia, the lieutenant of Jimmy Cherichier, head of the criminal coalition. In retaliation, the criminal groups maintain an incessant attack on residential areas, schools, and religious centers in Nason, Post-Marchand, and Avenue Popular in Port-au-Prince, the country's capital. The order from the leader of the criminal groups has spread to several provinces in the center of the country. In this context, they have warned of a forthcoming attack on the base of operations of the multinational police forces. In Venezuela, the Executive Secretary of ALBA TCP reaffirmed that the multilateral organization is the one that has contributed the most to humanity, while the entity is preparing to strengthen its shared development programs for the benefit of the peoples. The Secretary stressed that the alliance was born to generate a true cohesion of nations, emphasizing that ALBA is synonymous of union. In turn, the Executive Secretary of the organization pointed out that ALBA has made great contributions for its member nations, but it seeks to promote the development of a multipolar and pluricentric world. Jorge Arriaza also emphasized that ALBA is one of the few integration mechanisms that remain in force, asserting that it is not only a mechanism that exists in theory, but has also a great achievements and agreements throughout its 20 years of existence.
Porque la categoría bolivariana es la de la Unión.
The Bolivarian category is of the Union. Integration can be seen as a previous process in which the parts are integrated to constitute a union. The project of the liberator Simón Bolívar, both bilateral and multilateral in the host Congress of Panama, was the Union, League, and Perpetual Confederation of the Nascent Republics. And ALBA was born for the Union, and it was born so that this union will not be for the dominant elites, not for economic policies. Sometimes it is one and the same, but for the peoples, the fact that Hugo Chavez, Fidel Castro, and then Evo Morales, Rafael Correa, and the prime ministers of the Caribbean have joined it is because it is an expression of their peoples, and consequently, and some governments, that decide to set the goal of the integral union. So I believe that if ALBA has contributed more than any other international mechanism in our history, in the history of this continent, it is to rescue the project of the Union and to advance in very concrete things.
Internacional en nuestra historia, en la historia de este continente, es en rescatar el proyecto de la Unión y en avanzar en cosas muy concretas. Cuando tú le das...
When you give life to a doctor in a community, to someone who needs it, and could have died without medical attention, it is generating union. When you give sight, as well as the miracles of Jesus Christ, you are bringing life to that community. When you achieve that through Petrocaribe they have the resources to have life, to build hospitals, to build infrastructure, then you are generating a true cohesion and union for the peoples. So, if something is synonymous with ALBA, it is union.
In other news, in Colombia, a report by the Ombudsman's Office has alerted several social movements to figures showing repeated violations of women's rights in the context of the armed conflict and transgressions of international humanitarian law for communities in that country. Let's see more details in the following work.
La Defensoría del Pueblo dio a conocer un
The
informe.
Ombudsman's Office released a report with figures on violence against women during 2024. According to the data collected, 745 femicides have been registered, 44 of which were against girls, while between January and September alone, more than 26,000 cases of intimate partner violence and more than 300 cases related to human trafficking were reported. In addition, it was reported that 205 alerts have been issued on significant risks for women in conflict contexts.
Today we make a call to improve early warning responses and work together with the most affected regions of the country to alleviate the serious situation in which the communities live, strengthen their proposals, and offer protection measures not only individually, but especially collectively with early prevention measures. In the face of fear, creativity and solidarity, never silence.
Y es que en los territorios,
In the territories, violence is expressed with greater force against women who exercise leadership in their communities and fight for social and welfare demands related to the recovery of land and the implementation of comprehensive rural reform.
And for this reason, for accompanying these people who are fighting to be heard, to be given their rights, to be listened to, and to be given land to work, I am being threatened and stigmatized. I am being threatened and stigmatized by a guy named Mauricio Torres, who is a retired colonel of the security forces. He is also the partner of the widow of Olmedo Ocampo, the drug trafficker who was the owner of the Cachape farm. I am making this public denunciation because they are saying in all the media that I am a guerrilla swindler.
Social organizations describe this scenario as a very complex situation in the midst of the search for total peace that the current government has been promoting, since only in the last 2 years several armed groups have deepened their military actions and have degraded, continuously violating international humanitarian law.
Displacements, confinements, assassinations, massacres, extortions, kidnappings, recruitment of minors and planting of mines, in general, everything that is prohibited by international humanitarian law. But also the political discourse that relates them to society and the possibility of maintaining political and social recognition with the people. Has also been degraded because they have prioritized the taking of territories, the dispute of territories, the dispute of mines, drug trafficking, human trafficking of species, and in general a series of illegal businesses that delegitimize them little by little, and that if they continue along this route of lumpenization, the government will have to change its strategy of dialogue.
El gobierno va a tener que cambiar su estrategia de diálogo.
The challenges for the current government are growing with each passing day. A total peace and dialogues with different armed actors totally fragmented. A difficult situation for the communities and their leadership in the territories. In addition to the social transformation projects that do not advance in the Congress, where there is a parliamentary class that has been fed by the conflict.
Hernán Darío Tobar Gaitán, teleSUR, Bogotá, Colombia.
We now have a short break coming up, but first remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. In Uruguay, the President-elect Yamandu Orsi presented a new cabinet of ministers that will go in the country as of March next year. Correspondent Mateo Gurria with the details.
The new Uruguayan government is beginning to take shape, and after 3 weeks of negotiations with the different groups of the Broad Front, the President-elect, Yamandu Orsi, together with the Vice President-elect, Carolina Cussi, presented the new Council of Ministers that will take office on March 1st.
This is the team that will be installed in the future government. This is the team that from now on will begin to articulate with those who have been designated for the exchange of the transition in order to shape the activities of the future government.
After the election, negotiations took place to appoint the future leaders and begin to outline public policies.
I would say that there are situations that may emerge that have to do with unresolved issues of the previous government, which may appear quickly, some related to health, others related to the pension system.
It is such a vast ministry that the very program that the citizens voted for, which is the program of the Broad Front in its basis, talks about sovereignty issues, talks about the respect for the military career, talks also about the need to provide the best tools to exercise professionalism, and, in short, the defense of sovereignty.
As I was saying the other day, I am going to give the best of my technical capacity and my experience after so many years abroad to help Uruguay. That is the most important thing. The second thing is that I have the enthusiasm of having seen an extraordinary cabinet, of an extraordinary force, which I believe can be up to the challenges and objectives that the force that triumphed in these elections has set for itself.
Another priority will be to reduce social inequality, which has increased significantly in recent years.
Today, Uruguay is a more unequal society than it used to be, and there are structural problems and others that are more of an emergency and of the current situation that also need to be faced. And there are many people facing and doing things everywhere, in the neighborhoods, in the communities. We believe in this way of understanding social policy, with the participation of the people, encouraging the organization of the people, encouraging the strengthening of the capacities of the people so that they can be effectively freer and have a fairer society.
For political scientist Mauro Casas, the cabinet presented stands out for its technical profile in key positions, although without losing political weight.
It is a cabinet that combines several elements, as Yamandu had anticipated. It is a cabinet that has an important technical component. It has 3 or 4 people in key positions, not to mention the Ministry of Economy, the Chancellery, that have a technical profile, that has a profile not so much of a backing of its own bench, or of being leading the sectors of the broad front.
In addition, Uruguay's new cabinet of ministers is the one with the highest representation of women in Uruguayan history, although without reaching gender parity, and all the heads of the cabinet come from public education. The new ministers will take office on March 1st, 2025.
Mateo Grille, teleSUR, Montevideo, Uruguay.
And the Mayan train, the emblematic work of former Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador, has been in operation for 1 year. The current president, Claudia Sheinbaum, highlighted its value beyond transportation. Let's see.
The Mexican president showed on this map how the Mayan train was completed. After the inauguration of Sections 6 and 7 of this flagship project of the so-called Fourth Transformation of Mexico's public life.
The train is the recognition of the Mayan culture. This idea that the Spaniards arrived and brought civilization is totally erroneous and wrong, and the only thing it leads to is to give permanence to the discrimination that came with the colony.
As of last August, 340,000 passengers had used this flagship facility. A few hours before its first anniversary, it was reported that the figure reached more than 600,000, 20% of the estimated goal of 3 million people.
This dynamic of linkage with our airports, with the resorts that are in our state, which have a lot to offer in terms of tourism, is already beginning to be generated.
The Mayan train created 44,000 direct jobs and 18,000 indirect jobs, a figure that will increase with the startup of the Mayan hotels along the route.
The Mayan train also means social justice, because it provides welfare and development with justice for the communities and peoples of southeastern Mexico.
The work, which took 4 years, has as one of its objectives to bring welfare to the native communities and to rescue the archaeological pieces found during construction.
And today, the 1,554 kilometers of railroads, social justice, and narrowing the inequality gaps have been achieved.
The Mayan train is consolidating its position as an important tourist link through vacation packages, in spite of the criticisms made by some people.
There's no place here to have a sandwich or a coffee, nothing.
Environmental groups have denounced the environmental damage caused by the project, although according to the government, 500 million trees have been reforested to repair the environmental damage.
Daniel Rosas, TeleSUR, Ciudad de México.
And the U.S. Geological Survey registered Tuesday a 7.4 magnitude earthquake in the South Pacific archipelago of Vanuatu, which may activate a tsunami warning. The earthquake occurred 30 kilometers west of the coast of Port Vila, the country's capital. So far, authorities have not reported any death or injuries. The U.S. Forecasting Service warned that smaller waves are expected in some nations close to the Pacific. In this regard, the Defense Minister of New Zealand, Mark Mitchell, said that the government is closely following the situation in the archipelago, noting the nation is ready to send the necessary aid. We now have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English, there you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back. The Committee for the Protection of Journalists denounces that Israel has killed two-thirds of the total number of journalists who have died violent death worldwide by 2024. According to Jody Ginsberg, Executive Director of the organization, 95 journalists have been murdered worldwide. Two-thirds of these deaths are attributable to Israel. Since the beginning of the genocide operation against Gaza, which was simultaneously extended against Lebanon, the occupiers' troops have killed 141 press workers, 133 Palestinians, 2 Israelis, and 6 Lebanese. And Israeli occupation forces step up their relentless assault on Kamal Adwan Hospital in northern Gaza. More than 30 Palestinians were killed across Gaza in the early hours of Tuesday. Despite repeated appeals by the director of the World Health Organization, Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, who has described the situation in the hospital as a living hell, the siege against the center continues unabated. Its director, Hossam Abu Safiya, confirmed power outages, shortages of medicines and medical supplies, and constant bombardments. The situation in other areas of the Strip is not better. Several areas have been bombed. In one of these attacks, the whole Al-Tuktabatibi family was killed, 10 people in total, almost all women and children. And on Monday, the self-proclaimed Syrian leader Mohammed al-Jolani assured the nation would not lend its territory to carry out attacks against Israel. He said so in an interview to a British media under the name he prefers to use now, Ahmed al-Shara. With this identity, he hopes to dissociate himself from his past as the founder of one of the most bloodthirsty branches of the terrorist group Al-Qaeda. Al-Jolani, who is under an international arrest warrant for being considered by Washington as a specially designated global terrorist, has guaranteed the security of the Zionist entity, assuring that they will comply with the agreements. And Ukraine's security services killed General Igor Kirillov, chief of the radiological, chemical, and biological defense troops of the Russian armed forces. The news was confirmed by Svetlana Petrenko, representative of the investigation committee of the Eurasian nation. According to reports in the event, which occurred near the residence of the high official, his assistant was also killed. The investigation committee published minutes after the fact was confirmed that the improvised explosive device was placed on an electric scooter park on Ryansansky Avenue. In this context, Ukraine's security service have claimed responsibility for the assassination. General Kirillov led investigations that exposed U.S. involvement in biological labs in Ukraine and other countries. Like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website, telesurenglish.net. So join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.